My dear viewers, hello. Welcome to another episode. In 1941, and in one of the Soviet hospitals, Mikhail Kalashnikov, the sergeant and injured tank commander, woke up to a fuss in the patient warden. Oh God, what happened? The fuss was caused by soldiers, his brothers in arms, who fought along his side and have been greatly injured in the Battle of Bryansk against the Nazi Germans. When Kalashnikov asked them what they're talking about, they kept talking about their frustration with the Soviet leaders, who made them fight in an unfair battle with the Germans. Kalashnikov said he wasn't really around, being in the tank, and asked them to say what happened. They began telling him about how soldiers didn't have a problem with the severity of the fight with Nazis, but they had a problem with the weapon that they were given to fight with. Imagine, my friend, the scene with me, 3 Soviet soldiers on the line of fire, and they all share one old heavy rifle, that if they decided to shoot with, its recoil can dislocate the shoulder of the shooter. All of that to kill one Nazi soldier, who has an advanced machine gun, and can take them all out in the matter of minutes. Pow pow pow, and they're all down. After Kalashnikov heard that, he didn't go back to sleep, or scold the soldiers for the noise. What the hell are you guys saying? Instead, he asked for pen and paper, and started brainstorming an invention that would reform the military and global scenes forever. This time, my friend, I'll be generous. Wait, aren't you Ahmed? Yeah, but today I'm generous. Because, I'll be telling 2 stories, not just one. Both have this invention as their protagonist, the one Kalashnikov is brainstorming. The first story, my friend, starts with the beginning of World War II, when many armies have realized that it doesn't matter having a perfect and working rifle, but it matters that the rifle is suitable for the environment of the battlefield. For example, the Soviet fought with rifles, the Mosin Nagant. Despite being an old rifle, it had an excellent shooting range that went up to 800 meters with the scope. It had a 7.62 x 54 mmR cartridge, which was strong and heavy. It's that kind of weapon that makes a bang. It was a really heavy caliber that kills instantly and effectively, with a great shooting accuracy. Germans, on the other hand, used weapons like the Karabiner 98K, with a 57x 7.92 cartridge. Sounds like hotline number if you ask me. The weapon had almost the same qualities, and again with a great shooting accuracy. But both armies found out that in direct ground combat, all these qualities turned into flaws. The length and heavy weight of the rifle was a huge problem in a battle that needed fast movement. Plus, the heavy ammo didn't give soldiers the chance to carry more backup ammo. So naturally, they kept running out of ammo. During shooting, the weapon's recoil is too hard on the soldier's shoulder. I mean, imagine, my friend, that you're in the battle, and you see your fellow soldier with his hand on his shoulder. And you shout, "What? Who hit you in the shoulder, Muhammad?" And he tells you it's just a dislocation from his own rifle. Even the excellent shooting accuracy that was offered by these rifles wasn't that much a quality at the time. Because in direct ground combat, you don't need to accurately shoot at the enemy, he's already close and heading your way. If you swing around, you'll get him. The Soviet were aware of this issue even before the war, and tried to solve it in a simple yet smart way, which is to focus on the human element. In 1932, they developed the Mosin Nagant to be a sniper rifle. Because the qualities of the old rifles only worked for a trained sniper soldier who shot from a distance. Just then, the shooting range and accuracy would be on his side. That's exactly what happened in World War II. The Soviet had specialized sniper troops that included 2,000 women snipers. The most famous one was Lyudmila Pavlichenko, nicknamed as Lady of Death. She single-handedly killed 309 victims. That's the one who's a nightmare dressed like a daydream. If you researched it, you'll find that 9 out of the best 10 snipers in that war were Soviets. But the Germans, my friend, being the Germans there, decided to solve the same problem differently, by focusing on the firearm itself. Through transforming handguns into machine guns that work in direct ground combat, even if it loses its old qualities. That's the German mindset, brother. That was the difference the soldiers felt in the Battle of Bryansk, when they saw the inadequacy of their rifles against the mighty German machine gun, the MP40. That despite its strength described by the soldiers to Kalashnikov, the Germans didn't see it was that efficient. I mean, come on, the enemy can't sleep out of fearing it. No, we just don't like it. The Germans were developing a more efficient rifle. Here and then, Kalashnikov started thinking about radically reforming the old rifle. Just like the Germans, who managed to manufacture a rifle that Hitler thought to be the hope of ending the war. The Sturmgewehr 44, or also known as assault rifle STG-44. Historians considered it the first assault rifle in modern age. Although the war ended with the loss of the Nazis. It's your fault, Mussolini. And although Hitler didn't get the chance to be victorious with his Sturmgewehr, the Soviet kept thinking about developing their rifles, and came up with models like the AS-44, designed by the Soviet engineer, Alexei Sudayev. Which of course avoided the flaws of the old rifles, but it was too heavy, around 5.6 kilogram. Alexei then worked on a better model, but surprise surprise, my friend, Alexei died on 1946, at the age of 34 years old. As much as it was a shock for his family, it was a shock for the Soviet leaders too. I mean, finish the weapon, man, and then die peacefully. The man died young, and took the secret of the rifle to the grave. It was a great shock for the Soviet leaders. That's when Stalin thought of a sad, desperate solution, that is for the army to hold a secret competition, for the perfect design of the Soviet rifle, without any social or bureaucratic complications. That's really Stalin, abo Meade? Well, apparently, my friend, he had his moments. Anyone was welcome to apply. The competition just has to end with a design that meets up the efficiency of the German Sturmgewehr. And that, my friend, was a chance for our friend Kalashnikov, who gathered his designs and applied in the competition. Although he was just a sergeant without education in military engineering, he got accepted. He and 14 other contestants, each had an entire team to execute their designs. After many trials, the evaluation day came around. Kalashnikov showcased his rifle, that witnesses say once seen by his rival, the accomplished weapon designer, Vasily Dektyarev, who once saw Kalashnikov's work. He took a step back, and decided to quit the competition, in respect and awe for his work, without even showcasing his own work. Kalashnikov's weapon didn't only beat his rivals, it beat the German rifle itself. In that very moment, the Alaska 47 was born. Same as B-41 in the game Counter-Strike. You used to get the B-41, and both the 4 and 5 ones, and break into the back door. Let me explain to you, my friend, why the Alaska 47 was revolutionary in the weapon world. Kalashnikov saw that the Soviet Union not having designed the perfect rifle until that moment, is what I just said. That they were looking for a perfect rifle, without any flaws. Kalashnikov followed the rule, perfection is the enemy of good enough. Wanting to nail every detail, my friend, ruins the good things there. Stay away from perfection, my friend, not our thing. That's why I like to intentionally make mistakes, my friend. Kalashnikov then said that his rifle would have a 39x 7.62 mmR cartridge. A midway caliber, between the rifles and the guns. It was also lighter than the previous ammo, meaning that the soldiers would be able to carry more ammo. The weight of the Kalashnikov fully loaded is 4.3 kilogram. Can you imagine? The weight of a cat ranges between 4 to 5 kilogram. As if Kalashnikov is giving you a kitten to fight with. Forward we go EOW. Its shooting range didn't exceed 400 meters, unlike the older ones, that their range went as far as 800 meters. The truth, my friend, is that because Kalashnikov lived in times of war, and saw young soldiers that are required in a short time to learn using an old and complicated weapon, that many of them die as a victim of misusing it. So he decided to make his weapon soldier-proof. A gun that doesn't need a trained soldier. Anyone can learn how to use it, and quickly. According to the experiments, my friend, an 8-year-old, after 1 hour of training, can learn how to break down and reassemble the Kalashnikov. That's because it's loose tolerant, meaning that the rifle isn't one piece, but 8 separate parts, just like a puzzle. They're hard to be mixed up, because each part fits somewhere specific, and can't fit somewhere else. Kalashnikov also made use of his experience before the army, where he was a mechanic in a tractor factory in Tomsk Oblast in Siberia. He was responsible for the maintenance of the machines in severe climates. So he designed a weapon that can withstand any environment, no matter how severe. That's why the lifespan of a Kalashnikov can range between 20 and 40 years. All these qualities can make the Alaska 47 the accessible inaccessible for all the direct ground combat battles. A cheaply made rifle, and simple in a head-turning way. How hadn't anyone ever thought about it before? A weapon that wouldn't trouble the weakest of soldiers, nor its flaws would kill them. All of that transformed Kalashnikov from just a sergeant, to an icon in the Soviet Union, and receive honors like the Order of Lenin, and the Order of the Red Star. This is where our first story ends, my friend. Where Kalashnikov played the role of a national hero. That was the first story, and this is the second one. The Soviet Union established the Alaska 47 as their official weapon in 1949. The weapon's immense success made the Soviet think of it as a military confidentiality. But the challenges of the Cold War, that surfaced after World War II, like the formation of NATO in 1949, that included USA and Western Europe countries, made the Soviet form a counter-alliance, the Warsaw Pact in 1955. The Soviet, having their own alliance, couldn't leave their allies weak, they had to give them weapons. Meaning they had to export their Kalashnikov. They found that their factories weren't keeping up with the mass production needed for entire countries. So they decided to give these countries the license to manufacture the weapon and its ammo. That's why sources estimate the existence of over 100 million Kalashnikov around the world. Half of them at least are manufactured outside Russia. What's odd, my friend, is that there are Kalashnikovs manufactured outside Russia and got known for their local efficiency equally with the Russian Kalashnikov. Like who, you might think? Like the rifle produced by El Mahdi for Egyptian industries. Abo Mead, El Mahdi manufactures weapons, which are globally known on weapons sites as El Mahdi rifle. Any weapon amateur around the world would recognize it, from the number 54 engraved on it in Arabic. We bully those from El Mahdi, with their sassy fights, and it turns out there's a rifle named after them. This expansion was a test for the efficiency of the Kalashnikov, in usage and withstanding different environments. Although the Western saw the Kalashnikov for the first time in 1956, during the Soviet repression of the Hungarian Revolution, but this time they would see it up close, in a bitter confrontation. The Vietnam War. The Vietnam War means swamps, mud forests and long grass, and basically everything you learnt in geography and never understood, all was in this war. The untrained Viet Cong farmers then used the Alaska 47, but they were surprised, and the American soldiers used the M16, but they were surprised that the American M16 needed constant cleaning, and used to get clogged and corroded. All because of the swamps around them. In every combat, they lost around 30% to 40% of their firing strength. While on the other hand, the Vietnamese farmer who is clueless about wars, swinging the Kalashnikov left and right, swamps or no swamps, the weapon is always working. Which makes sense, its designer worked with tractors in Siberia, not El Guna. The American soldiers were too desperate, that they anticipated killing any Vietnamese, just to take his Kalashnikov and fight. Using the Russian Americans? It was a scandal that made the American Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, pressure the Pentagon to manufacture the Arkansas 15 rifle, the American rival of the Kalashnikov. Actually, my friend, during the 50s and 60s, the Kalashnikov turned from just a successful weapon to a symbol of independence. A symbol for all countries that were independent after World War II, and were allies with the Soviet Union. They had the Kalashnikov as a national symbol on their flags, like Mozambique, or on the military uniform like Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, and Timor-Leste. Sounds like a clan or a mango breed. In Egypt, if you visited Ismailia, you'll see a huge memorial monument, in the shape of a bayonet and a Kalashnikov muzzle, in the memory of the martyrs in the Battle of Ismailia in 1973. This cultural symbolism, my friend, would be rivaled by a counter-symbolism, from countries like the USA, who called the Kalashnikov the bad guy. Hollywood used this symbolism in all its movies, as an indication that whoever is using it is the antagonist. But that didn't affect the weapon's popularity, on the opposite, it went beyond the real world. So what beyond reality, Abo Mead? Is it in all homes and kids play with it? Did Wegs sing for it? Yes, he did actually. The Kalashnikov is known to any kid who plays games, he can recognize it. From Medal of Honor to Free Fire, that have many types of Alaska 47, known as skins. Every skin is a different weapon color, with different qualities each, regarding damage strength and range. My friend, we're with a widely spread weapon, to the point that it was in the armory of 106 countries. But I'm sorry to tell you, that the weapon witnessed 3 more expansion waves. Bigger and more dangerous. They start in the 70s. In 1974, the Soviet Union released the Alaska 74, lighter than the Alaska 47 with 1 kilogram. And with a strength of 650 bullets per minute, instead of 600. And with a range of 600 meters instead of 400. Meaning, less weight, more ammo, and wider range. This in turn made the Alaska 47 an old weapon, nicknamed Grandpa at that point. The Soviet Union decided to bid it farewell, which led to selling huge amounts of Alaska 47 in the market. They don't want it anymore, they have the new one. Since many countries had sufficient amounts of it over the past years, these weapons found their way to the smaller entities, like the armed fractions and rebels in Africa and Asia, and the drug cartels in Mexico. That was the first wave. The second wave was in 1979, when the Soviet Union decided to invade Afghanistan. The Afghan fighters at that time asked the CIA and Pakistan to be supplied with Kalashnikov, so they can fight back the Russian invasion. In his book, AK-47, The Weapon That Changed the Face of War, Larry Kahaner said that CIA representative in Pakistan, Howard Hart, had imported hundreds of thousands of Kalashnikovs from Chinese factories to the Afghans. That deal was to be continued by USA, as the largest importer and distributor of the Kalashnikov. Can you believe it, America? For the first time in Afghanistan, the Soviet would witness the Kalashnikov bullets being fired in their direction. That doesn't happen every day, does it? Forward to the 90s, we see the third and most violent wave, with the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Leading to 80% of the Soviets' small arms arsenal to disappear. Guess what was mostly in that arsenal? Bravo, the Kalashnikov. These weapons were sold or smuggled or whatever, to all areas of armed conflict around the world. Someone would ask me, Abo Mead, why did the armed entities prefer the Kalashnikov over any other? Remember in Out First Story? When Kalashnikov created the Alaska 47, with qualities that can make it easy for any kid to use. That's exactly why it worked best for many entities that mainly recruit kids to fight. Statistics tell us that around 200 to 300,000 kids over the world participate in conflicts using the Kalashnikov. Also, the efficiency of the Kalashnikov to all environments made it suitable for all conflicts, from Somalia to Vietnam. Kalashnikov is the joker of the weapons, it plays a part in all wars. The last and most important point is that Kalashnikov designed its weapon to be cheap and easy to locally manufacture it. This made the armed entities perfect clients, because they would need large quantities, not like individuals that buy one piece. This is evident in the price difference between a country and another. In a time when a Kalashnikov in USA cost around $10,000 per weapon, in Africa on the other hand, having large demand on the weapon, it was named the African credit card. In Liberia in 1990, Charles Taylor was gathering rebels for his war and giving out a Kalashnikov to each one for free, for them to carry out robberies and help him out, you know. In his statement, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, the one that expresses his concern? No, this one condemns and deplores, the other one is Ban Ki-moon. Kofi said that the price of the weapon in third world countries was up to a chicken or $15. The more demand it gets, the less the price. In a study of the Foreign Policy magazine, the Kalashnikov price in Kenya in 1986 was equivalent of 15 cows. While in 2005, it was equivalent to only 4 cows. This difference in prices made the factory, Izhevsk, the mother Russian manufacturer of Kalashnikov, depend in 2012 on the weapon's sales from the American civilians who preferred the Kalashnikov as a hunting gun. 0.70% of the factory's sales were from civilians and in USA. Imagine, my friend, a Russian factory making a Russian weapon, 70% of its sales is from civilians and 40% from them are Americans. This makes the Kalashnikov and its American rival, AR-15, the most used weapons in mass shootings, done by several American teenagers. Like the American Robert Hawkins, who killed 9 people in a mall in Nebraska in 2007, using a Kalashnikov. And like the recent shooting, in an elementary school in South Texas in May 2022, that had 21 fallen victims, including 19 children, and the killer used the American Arkansas 15. Same weapon has been used in 11 shootings since 2012 till now. In short, all the qualities that Kalashnikov had integrated in the weapon, to save his own country, were the same qualities that made it the perfect weapon for all the terrorists, rebels, and even teenagers around the world. Anyone can use the weapon for any purpose. If you ask anyone about the most dangerous weapon, they're likely to answer, atomic bomb, despite that the casualties from the bomb don't exceed 200,000. According to a research in 2006, titled, The Economics of Small Arms, the world has 500 million firearms, and 100 million of them are Kalashnikovs. In every 75 to 100 people in the world, there's an individual with a Kalashnikov. This makes the number of victims to this weapon with its variations, around 250,000 yearly, which is more than those who died of the atomic bomb. This made the research call it weapon of the century. In our first story, Kalashnikov was a national hero, while in the second one was a crazy scary inventor. He invented a weapon that took part in all wars and conflicts over the world. Which one is he, a national hero or a scary inventor? In interviews with Kalashnikov, he used to deny the second story, and insist that he is a national hero, and that the moral burden of Kalashnikov should be carried by the Nazis, as they made him become a weapon maker, while he actually wanted to be a poet. How weird is he? Imagine, my friend, that most of these conflicts in the world, that are still affecting us in our daily lives, are because Hitler wanted to be a painter but couldn't, and Kalashnikov wanted to be a poet and also couldn't. In his latest interviews, Kalashnikov said that when he saw his weapon in the hands of kids and terrorists, he wished if he had invented something simple and peaceful, that doesn't have that much an impact. He wished if he had invented simple things, like a lawnmower. He was remorseful, but too late. In his last year, he said in a letter to the Russian church that his spiritual pain is unbearable, and asking that since his rifle has killed thousands of people, is he to blame for it, as a Christian believer? He didn't sign the letter for the first time with his rank, a lieutenant general, but slave of God, the designer Mikhail Kalashnikov, greater than someone might tell me. Alfred Nobel founded the Nobel Prize to repent of his invention of dynamite, which was why he was called traitor of death. Why didn't Kalashnikov do anything humanitarian? With his massive revenues from the weapon, to make him feel better, and the revenues of the Kalashnikov with its popularity, that sold over 100 million, would be way bigger than the dynamite's revenues. The sad truth is that Nobel was a weapon designer from Sweden, underline Sweden. But Kalashnikov was a weapon designer from the Soviet Union, so all revenues went to the government. Kalashnikov spent his entire life depending on his pension, just like public sector workers. If you were in Russia at the time, you could have met him waiting for the government support. His living conditions didn't get better before 2004. He was 84 at the time, when he was allowed to give his name to famous brands like Kalashnikov Vodka. Imagine, when he repents from weapon, he starts a vodka brand. It's like he insists on going to hell. You can think of this as two stories or one two-faced story. Kalashnikov was like Harvey Dent in the movie Dark Knight, Gotham's national hero, that later became Two-Face, or the double-faced villain. He had a famous quote that also relates to Kalashnikov's story. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. We too, my friend, have two stories. The first had Hitler as the most dangerous threat to our modern world, and to stop him, man invented nukes and Kalashnikov. We have another story, where the world is free of Nazis, but it will never be safe again, because of these very same inventions. That's it, my friend. Last but not least, don't forget to see the old episodes, the new episodes, look at the sources, and if you're on YouTube, subscribe. You know what, I feel guilty too. Just like Kalashnikov, I was making macaroni for dinner, and I thought it would benefit humanity, but it turned out to be mac and cheese. Well, it is what it is. See you later.